How did one nation's ambition unravel into total collapse? Overstretched forces, devastating losses, and dwindling resources pushed Germany to its breaking point. What critical mistake turned the tide in the East? How did industrial might crush military strategy? When did soldiers realize defeat was inevitable? The answer lies in 8 decisive steps that sealed their fate. Operation Barbarossa. In the summer of 1941, Germany launched the largest land invasion in history. Operation Barbarossa aimed to conquer the Soviet Union in a matter of months. At first, it seemed unstoppable. German forces moved fast, using their lightning war tactics, capturing vast territories and surrounding entire Soviet armies. Millions believed victory was just weeks away. But something unexpected happened. The Soviet Union didn't collapse. Instead, it kept fighting back, pulling its factories and people deeper into its massive land. German supply lines stretched longer and longer, making it harder to get fuel, food, and ammunition to the front. Winter arrived early and harsh, catching German soldiers unprepared in summer uniforms. Tanks froze. Soldiers struggled to survive in temperatures far below zero. What started as a quick strike turned into a brutal, endless fight. Germany now faced a war on 2 fronts, east and west, draining resources faster than anyone imagined. This was the first critical mistake that would eventually lead to total collapse. But the worst was waiting in a frozen city. Stalingrad, 1942-43. The city of Stalingrad became the deadliest battlefield of the entire war. Germany needed to capture it to control vital supply routes and break Soviet resistance. For months, brutal fighting raged street by street, building by building. German forces pushed deeper into the city, confident they would win. But the Soviets had a plan. In November 1942, they launched a massive counterattack, surrounding the entire German army trapped inside Stalingrad. Cut off from supplies, soldiers faced freezing cold, starvation, and relentless attacks. No reinforcements could reach them. Their leader refused to let them retreat, believing rescue would come. It never did. In February 1943, over 90,000 German soldiers surrendered, a catastrophic loss. This marked the turning point in the East. German morale shattered. Families back home began to doubt victory. The unstoppable machine suddenly looked vulnerable. For the first time, the world saw Germany could be defeated. But another disaster waited on the open plains. Kursk, 1943. After Stalingrad, Germany needed a victory to regain momentum. They planned a massive offensive at Kursk, aiming to crush Soviet forces in one decisive blow. This became the largest tank battle ever fought in human history. Thousands of tanks, artillery, and soldiers clashed across vast fields. Germany threw everything into this attack, believing superior technology and tactics would prevail. But the Soviets were ready. They had prepared deep defensive lines, hidden traps, and overwhelming numbers waiting in reserve. When German forces attacked, they ran straight into a prepared enemy. Days of intense combat wore down German tank divisions. Losses mounted rapidly. Fuel ran low. The offensive stalled, then collapsed entirely. The Soviets counterattacked with devastating force, pushing German armies backward. After Kursk, Germany never launched another major offensive in the East again. They were now permanently on the defensive, reacting instead of attacking. Resources drained faster, manpower couldn't be replaced, the tide had fully turned, and retreat became the only option left. Meanwhile, another enemy was crushing them without firing a shot. Overwhelmed economy. Germany faced an enemy it couldn't defeat on the battlefield: Allied factories. The United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union combined produced weapons, tanks, planes, and supplies at a rate Germany could never match. American factories alone built thousands of aircraft every month. Soviet industries, relocated deep into their territory, churned out tanks faster than Germany could eliminate them. Meanwhile, Germany struggled with critical shortages. Fuel became scarce as oil supplies dwindled. Supply lines stretched too far, making it nearly impossible to deliver what little they had. Factories inside Germany couldn't keep up with demand, especially as Allied missions disrupted production. Soldiers at the front went without ammunition, food, and replacement equipment. Even when German engineering produced superior weapons, they couldn't build enough to make a difference. The harsh reality set in. No amount of battlefield skill could overcome being outnumbered and outproduced 10-1. Germany was being buried under the weight of Allied industrial power, slowly suffocating their war machine. Then the Allies opened a second front that changed everything. Western Front reopened 1944. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched the largest sea invasion in history on the beaches of Normandy, France. Thousands of ships carried soldiers across the English Channel under heavy resistance. Germany had fortified the coast, but they couldn't hold back the overwhelming Allied numbers and firepower. Within weeks, Allied forces broke through German defenses and pushed inland. France, occupied for 4 years, began to slip from German control. Now Germany faced exactly what it feared most: a true two-front war. In the east, Soviet armies advanced relentlessly. In the west, American, British, and Canadian forces liberated territory after territory. German commanders had to split already stretched resources between two collapsing fronts. There weren't enough soldiers, tanks, or fuel to defend both sides. Retreat became constant. Towns and cities fell one after another. The once mighty German military found itself squeezed between two massive armies closing in from opposite directions. Escape routes narrowed, hope faded, the walls were closing in fast. But the Soviets weren't finished. They prepared their final crushing blow. Soviet onslaught. In the summer of 1944, the Soviet Union launched Operation Barbarossa, one of the largest and most devastating offensives in military history. Soviet forces smashed through German defensive lines with overwhelming numbers and superior tactics. Entire German armies were encircled, destroyed, or forced into chaotic retreat. The operation eliminated more German divisions in weeks than any previous campaign. Soviet momentum became unstoppable. They liberated occupied territories and pushed relentlessly toward Germany's borders. German soldiers, exhausted and outnumbered, couldn't hold ground anywhere. Every defensive position collapsed under the Soviet advance. By early 1945, Soviet forces crossed into German territory itself, bringing the war home for the first time. Civilians fled westward in desperation. Cities braced for what was coming. The Eastern Front, once deep in Soviet land, now burned inside Germany. There was nowhere left to retreat. The final confrontation loomed as Soviet armies prepared to take the capital city itself, the ultimate prize that would end the war. Inside Germany, something else was breaking, something invisible but just as deadly. Collapse of morale and resources. By early 1945, the reality became impossible to ignore. Fuel supplies ran critically low. Tanks sat abandoned because there was nothing to power them. Ammunition shortages meant soldiers fought with limited rounds. Food rations shrank to near starvation levels. Reinforcements stopped arriving because there were no more reserves left. On both fronts, German armies faced enemies with endless supplies and fresh troops. Exhausted soldiers, many just teenagers or older men, knew the war was lost. Morale collapsed. Some units surrendered without fighting. Others deserted, trying to reach home before the end came. Communication broke down as leadership lost control. The organized military machine dissolved into scattered groups just trying to survive. Civilians suffered even worse. Cities lay in ruins, families separated, and hope disappeared. The nation that once believed in total victory now faced total destruction. Everyone, soldiers, commanders, and citizens, understood the same terrible truth. Defeat was no longer a possibility. It was certain and coming fast. And then, in the spring of 1945, it finally ended.
Final surrender. May 1945. Soviet forces reached Berlin in April 1945, surrounding the capital in a final, overwhelming assault. Street by street, building by building, the city fell. Resistance crumbled as remaining defenders ran out of everything: hope, ammunition, and reasons to keep fighting. On April 30, Germany's leader met his fate in a bunker beneath the burning city. With leadership gone and armies shattered, what remained of the German military had no choice left. On May 7, 1945, German commanders signed an unconditional surrender to the Allies. The war in Europe officially ended on May 8th, a day celebrated as Victory in Europe Day. Germany lay in ruins, occupied by Allied forces, divided into zones of control. Millions had been eliminated, cities were destroyed. The nation that started the war had been completely defeated. The answer to how this happened wasn't one mistake, it was 8 steps, each one pushing Germany closer to inevitable collapse. Ambition, overreach, and facing overwhelming Allied strength sealed their total defeat. This is how empires fall, one fatal step at a time. Germany's downfall wasn't sudden. It unfolded through 8 critical steps. From the frozen wasteland of the Eastern Front to the overwhelming industrial power of the Allies, each mistake compounded the last. Overstretched supply lines, catastrophic losses, and relentless pressure from all sides left no escape. By May 1945, total defeat became inevitable. History teaches us that no military power, no matter how strong, can survive strategic overreach and endless war on multiple fronts.